Welcome to the Awaken On Purpose podcast, where each week I share insight, inspiration, and advice for quantum leaping into new levels of expansion in your purpose and mission as a visionary leader and wayshower. You'll also hear from other new paradigm leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom. If you're passionate about embodying your highest destiny and leading others through this great awakening into the next golden age, this show is for you. Hey everyone, I am really excited to welcome as a guest to the show today, Paul Davis. He is a gifted intuitive personal advisor, an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and an award-winning business growth consultant and speaker. Paul, I just have already enjoyed our chat prior to hitting record today and can't wait to have this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's absolutely brilliant to be here, and I'm really delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad to have you here too. And I'd love for us to just kind of kick things off with, if you could just share with us more about, your work, what you do, and what inspired you to pursue that.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, well, in some respects, I kind of have to go back to the beginning, but I'll do as quickly as possible.
No, you're not the scoop. Go right ahead. Yes.
Well, I suppose when I was growing up, both my parents were from the country, so your listeners might be able to guess by this stage that I'm not from America.
Right.
I was born and raised in Dublin, in Ireland, and both my parents were from the country. And one of the things that is in the folklore within Ireland is the aspect of being the seventh son. So when I was born, I ended up being the seventh son. But not only that, I found out much later that I'm actually the seventh son of a seventh of a seventh. Now, the folklore in Ireland is that if you're born the seventh son, it basically indicates that you're gifted in some way. And typically you're gifted in the healing side of things. So when I was a child growing up, a lot of the things that I was doing as a kid, instead of playing outside with my friends, was actually healing people. So people would come to the house and they'd no end of ailments, whether it be cancer, rheumatism, arthritis, or migraines, or whatever it might be, and so on. And I would do a healing session with them. So I always knew from a very young age I was different in some way, and I was treated differently by compared to my brothers and so on. Mm-hmm. But I suppose I just grew up the same in some respects as much as normal as possible, going through what everybody else goes through in terms of college and university and getting your first job and all that kinds of things. And in that I trained as an accountant, so I qualified as an accountant. I did taxation, I did a lot of other different disciplines as well. And what I used to do as a career was I'd go into companies and I'd turn them around very, very quickly. So my record on average would be turning a company around within 6 months. And then I set up my own business in 2001 called Davis Business Consultants. And again, it was the same premise, and going into companies and helping them to grow and scale. And a lot of people that I would have worked with will be either solopreneurs right through to medium-sized businesses up to companies that are looking for either a listing on the Irish Stock Exchange or going for large-scale funding. So it's all about growing and scaling businesses. But I suppose to go back a little bit was I just assumed that people could do pretty much what I could do. And I just assumed that I was the same as everybody else in that respect. But as I met more and more people as I was growing up and getting a little bit older, I discovered that I was not only intuitive, but I was also an empath, which gave rise to a lot of things that I would experience as I was growing up. But again, I just took that everybody else could experience the same thing. But then when I got around to it, one thing that used to happen to me was when I'd go into companies and I'd be talking to different people and I'd get different insights or knowings and visions and images for different people, and it was always around what they were to do in this world, meaning what their purpose was. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time when I was growing up, it was a case of I just wished that somebody could come to me and tell me what I was supposed to do, what my life purpose was. But I never found that. Nobody, and despite all the research that I did, I could never find the answers to what my true life purpose was. And it wasn't until one moment where I got a download. And in that download, it was a case of, Paul, your purpose is to put people on their purpose. And that was, in some respects, a light bulb moment. but it made complete and total and utter sense, because all the things that are online or in books or that people talk about finding your life purpose, they didn't sit well with me because I was never answering the question. And I dismiss an awful lot of that. And even when I'm talking to clients and I bring them through it and explain it, when I say it, they absolutely get it and they understand reasons why it actually doesn't work. So what I've been doing over the years was developing a methodology whereby I could match my knowings and my insights and my images and the visions that I get for people with a methodology that I developed. So therefore, we could bring anybody through that methodology, and therefore we can actually find their absolute, total and utter unique life purpose. And the part of the reason being was that I would get clients coming to me and I tell them what their life purpose is, and I tell them, I'd be trying to explain the images and the knowings that I would get for my clients. But in some respects, they turn around to me and say, Paul, you're just making it up. It doesn't, how on earth am I to do that? And who am I to do that? And where would I even start? So what I had to do is I had to find the evidence in their life and to match it as best I possibly could to the visions and the knowings and the insights that I would get from my clients. And once I found the evidence in their life, well, then now it made total sense to them. And therefore their conscious mind could actually accept it an awful lot more. And therefore I now have to rely less on my intuitive side and more on the methodology, because now I can bring the people through it. And then what I do with clients is I work with them on an ongoing basis in order to support them and help them with using my business consultant hat in some respects to help them to grow and scale their business. So what I thought, everybody else could do, I didn't know that at the time when I was developing my own career. But now what I do now is I purely only specifically work with people that want to find out what their true life purpose is. I bring them through the methodology, and then I support them in actually growing their business or developing their career from that perspective, so that it honors or it aligns to what their true unique life purpose is.
So beautiful what you're doing, and I feel like it's kismet that we connected too, because the work that we do is actually very similar.
Absolutely.
I'm just like I'm just feeling so much of myself in what you're describing in terms of your journey too, right? Of finding that purpose, to realize that, one of the big reasons why you're here is to help other people step into that. It's so cool. Have you found, what I've found over time is that our purpose, right, or someone else's purpose, and some people have a global mission, that they're here to fulfill too, that it evolves over time. Is that what you found as well?
I tell you what I found was that in some respects, it gets bigger. So if I look at from it evolving from that perspective, it never really changes. There's always a core within the actual purpose itself, but it evolves from the perspective of it gets bigger, or as an individual steps more into their purpose and fulfilling their purpose, now it develops more from that perspective, and it gets bigger from that perspective. So that's what I found. So so an individual in my mind kind of is, in some respects, it has a sole purpose. So they have a contract to fulfill. So, and then as they're growing up in the early part of the years, that's when it now starts to solidify. And then it's the remainder of their years is literally trying to fulfill that purpose. Now, if you go back in, psychologists will refer to the formative years as being somewhere between age 0 and 7. I go a little bit further than that. So there's a pre element to it, meaning before you're born and before you as a soul coming into this lifetime, as you're being going through the pregnancy months. And then I believe it goes further on into age 12 is when you're solidifying what that purpose is. And then from age 12 onwards, your job is to fulfill that purpose. And our unconscious mind is constantly trying to get us to fulfill our purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. And how that plays out, right, is really heavily can be heavily influenced by someone's external experiences, right? And their environment. I find it really fascinating in the younger generations. I feel like I'm dating myself right now, but that people are really coming around to aligning with their path earlier and earlier is what I'm seeing.
some are a little bit more sensitive, and they do know it, but they may be a little bit off track. That's what I've seen, and the people that come with, because I've had all different age groups come to me trying to figure out what their purpose is. What has definitely happened over the last couple of years through the pandemic is people have been afforded the time to reflect on what it is that they're to do. And so they've been in a job. And so a lot of the people that would have come to me over the years is from the perspective, they've said to me, Paul, look, I just feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. I've no, there's no fulfillment in life. I'm not enjoying my life. And even though a lot of the people that would come to me in terms of being highly successful in the monetary sense and what people would classify as being success. So these are individuals that are running significant companies. They're CEOs, COOs, CTOs, all the different C-suite, if you want to call it from that perspective. They're celebrities. They have everything that people want to have in terms of the cars, the houses, the holidays, the money, everything that they have. But they're coming to me and they're saying, I just don't want to be here. And, you know, I've had several different conversations where, and again, it's part of my own background as well, and hence the reason why I'm so passionate about it, where people have said to me, look, I've planned or have even attempted to check it out of this lifetime. And until such times they actually find and understand what they're here to do and their purpose, now that gives them an absolute focus and a clarity and a certainty of what they're to do. And with that direction and with that focus, now they can go after and pursue the career or pursue the business that they're to create in order to make a much, much bigger impact that they're here to make. And now it makes total sense to them. And it's when you're on your purpose, that's when you get the joy, the zest for life, the fulfillment, literally you're driven by your purpose is innate to yourself, meaning it's within yourself. And it's that purpose that drives you forward. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, they don't know what that purpose is. And when they search online and read books and it tells them, you know, find your passion, you know, I dismiss everything from that perspective, you know, find your why and, you know, man's search for meaning and ikigai. I dismiss all of that. And the reason being is because it doesn't give the people the answers of what their purpose is. But when they do know what their purpose is, which is what I bring them through, probably pretty much similar to yourself, Jennifer, in terms of as you're working with your clients and you're identifying what a client's purpose is, when they know that purpose, the difference is absolutely phenomenal for them. Absolutely. It's huge, the difference for them.
Yeah, I find, you know, in many cases, not in every case, but in many cases, a lot of people have an idea already of what that is. And it's not as much the lack of clarity as it is actually resistance. The resistance is causing confusion because there's a programming of an environment that they've been exposed to, or their past experiences, or what they've taught, which are often contrary to what they're being guided from within, right? So I find that, yeah, in a lot of cases, those beliefs and those experiences can be causing a lot of what is leading people to feel confused. And our purpose is always, you know, intertwined with what brings us joy, what our individual, you know, values are. And yeah, it's so fascinating.
Absolutely is. But that's the work that we're to do. Yes. Because unless somebody gets on the purpose and fulfills what their purpose is, that's how they're making the bigger difference. It's the ripple effect. So where, for example, I might work with 100 different clients, but it's the impact that those 100 different clients are going to make as well. And so the ripple effect is absolutely massive. And that's what I'm seeing, a huge shift. And, you know, I'm sure your listeners are probably observing this as well, whereby, yes, there is an increase in consciousness. There is an awareness amongst people, and moving away from, you know, the dogma perhaps that we would have been taught over the years in terms of whether it be political, society, or religious, and trying to find our true selves and our true essence. And it's that raise of consciousness which is actually developing from the perspective of, no, we're here to make a difference. We're here for a reason, which we absolutely are. But then it's a case of, how do we actually fulfill that purpose?
Absolutely. And that's a great segue into the next question I wanted to ask you, was really more of really just a sharing own experience and expertise, because intellectually understanding something and even having clarity and awareness, right, can feel like a very different ball game from taking action to, and how do you integrate that right into your existing physical reality. So I'd love to hear your insights and thoughts around that.
Explain that one for a little bit more for me.
Yeah, so based on your experience and expertise, so even sometimes when someone does have clarity on what their purpose is, right, and they have an intellectual understanding, going from understanding that to applying that into action and integrating
very
it
different.
into your reality. So very
okay. Yeah, perfect. Because what shows up for people is fear. So questions that I get immediately after I give an individual what their purpose is, not in all the cases, but the vast majority of cases will be called, how am I to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to do this? And even in some respects, this is something that I do so easily. So you mean to say I'm able to charge a fee for doing this?
Yeah.
So that's where, in some respects, the business hat comes on. And I said, no, this is how we now need to structure or monetize what it is that you're to do. But so a lot of it, so I break it down into two different strands. One is, and people misunderstand, what's actually going on for people. Fear is one thing, okay? But fear is a perception. And once you get over the perception, well, then now you can move forward. And it's all about taking action. But when it comes to confidence, there's three pillars to making up confidence. Mm-hmm. And that's about your self-love, your self-belief, and your self-worth. When you work on each one of those three pillars, now that's when you're building your confidence. What people misinterpret is competence for confidence. And competence is made up of skills, knowledge, and experience. So when somebody asks the question, Paul, how on earth am I to do this? Really what they're asking is not necessarily confidence, but more about competence, because they've never perhaps even built a business before. They don't even know where to start. So it's all about finding out, okay, what are those initial steps that need to be taken in order to set up a business, or what's the name that we're going to call the business, and what do I need to do from an accounting perspective or a tax perspective and so on, and how am I going to get my clients? So a lot of the work that I would have done over the years and still do to this day is, my second book that I published it was called More, and it was specifically aimed at individuals. And the subtitle to the book is How to Get More Clients, More Fees, and More Time. Because ultimately, when somebody tries to figure out what or understands and knows what their purpose is, and then they want to monetize that into a business, their first port of call is, well, where am I going to get the clients from? And how am I going to get the clients? And how am I going to get paid? And what's the fee I should charge in order to actually get paid? And it does get back, because in Ireland especially, when somebody has a gift, because this happened to me as a kid growing up, we would never accept money or gifts in exchange for the healing that I was doing. Mm-hmm. And that's what's contained in a lot of people that are in the healing sector, or the spiritual sector, if you want to call it from that perspective, or the holistic side of things, because they have this dogma that's been given to us, or this belief that it's not right to charge money or have an exchange of money or a gift in some respects for the gift that we naturally do, because they perceive it as being God-given, which it is, but it's a case of they don't understand the universal law of fair exchange. And if you fully understand the universal law of fair exchange, well, then there has to be an exchange in order for everything to work properly. There has to be that balance. And if there's not that balance, well, then things start to go awry. So a lot of the work that I do is around, working over each one of those fears, but then it's about building confidence and building competence in order to actually get them to fulfill what their purpose is.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I mean, that's beyond Ireland, right? I feel like that's something that's very prominent everywhere, is that there can be, really that mindset of servitude and like, who am I to be charging, for these gifts? But like you said, it's a fair exchange, and the benefit that someone is receiving from having that type of support is expediting their path in a way that, would likely not happen if they were trying to figure it all out on their own, right? So I feel like, when it comes to people that are receiving that kind of support, there has to be already some type of desire distilled in them in terms of, them being driven to move forward on that path to receive that support. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And it's really not, it's not serving or servitude, it's contribution.
Yeah. Let me like, it's what we've grown up to believe, because it's the beliefs that we're given by society, by different ways as we're growing up. But when you start to question the belief, but as a sensitive, meaning, I'm an intuitive, but I'm also an empath. When you receive the downloads, and I received so many different downloads, but I remember receiving one in relation to this particular subject matter, because that's part of what I was doing. I was given my, for one better word, my services away for free, or given as pro bono and all that kind of sort of things. But I was reprimanded quite significantly for doing it. Mm-hmm. And when you understand anybody that's gifted, what you are is you are a channel for that gift. Mm-hmm. So, but you still have to work within the matrix. So let me put it this way, money is just energy. When you break everything down, it is just energy. Mm-hmm. So the universal law of fair exchange is energy, is an exchange of energy. Mm-hmm. So if you're giving of something, meaning you're giving your gift or your knowledge or something to another individual, well, then what's the exchange that you're receiving back from that individual? So you have to fulfill the universal law of fair exchange. Absolutely. Otherwise the universe will make things an awful lot awkward for you.
Absolutely. And money doesn't actually come from people. Like you said, it's an energy. Money comes from source, comes from God. And through being the channel for those gifts and what you're aligned to, how you're aligned to show up in the world and what you're aligned to do, in doing that, then you're divinely supported. And money is one of those things.
Yeah. And when you stop that, well, then that's when the support is stopped. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reprimand. Yeah.
I love this discussion we're having, because in aligning with, all of what you're sharing today, the journey can unfold with more ease and grace. Aligning with your purpose doesn't always have to feel hard and difficult. The only challenging part of it is really just us getting out of our own way, like allowing ourselves to let go of those beliefs and behaviors and things that don't align with our highest self. So I'm just really, really loving this conversation. Paul, just in closing, what else are you feeling guided to bring forward?
In terms of the work that I do, what I say to people, people ask me is, bottom line is I save lives. That's what I do. That's my whole purpose, my whole mission. And I mean that metaphorically as well as literally, because I get people that are coming to me in relation to they've lost all hope within life and they're looking to check out. And then there's people that are going through life and they're a bit like on a treadmill, so they're not really living life either. So the work that I'm doing is I've got a big number that I want to reach in terms of the number of lives that I want to save from that perspective. I'm seeing, and if you're asking me in terms of what my own sense is, my own sense, and it's been building for the last couple of years, and it is getting stronger and stronger, and it's accelerating in a power perspective, is that there's, and the only best way I can describe it, because I've only got myself to kind of tune in from this perspective. So I don't listen to other people, I don't read any other books, I don't watch media and all that kind of things. But my own sense that's been building over the last number of years is that the only way I can describe it is there's a battle about to happen. And it's a battle, the best way I can describe it is a battle between good and bad. So some people might say they're good or evil, and I'm not talking about what's happening in Ukraine or Russia. I'm not talking about that whatsoever. It's that's separate to what I'm expecting. And people are being called to be on their purpose and to be who they truly are in order to prepare themselves and to be ready for that battle, because that is coming. And over the next number of years, and it's not to frighten anybody or it's not to shock anybody, but there is going to be a huge amount of turmoil that's going to be happening over the next couple of years. And some people will be able to ride that unease and that uncertainty. And the people definitely that are prepared for it and understand what's actually going on and are preparing themselves for it, it'll be easier for them. I'm not saying it's going to be completely easy, but it is going to be easier for them. And so that's what I'm sensing going forward. A lot of the clients that I would have worked with over the years, and even if I go back, say 3, 4, 5 years, and I told them, look, you've got to get ready for this, and this, because this is going to be happening. And they all turned around to me, because I run several mastermind groups, and they all turned around, Paul, again, you're just making this up. Like, where on earth is that coming from? And right now, at the moment, every single one of those things is manifesting. It's coming true. And now they're turning around to me and say, Paul, we should have listened to you. Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is that's my sense going forward, is what's actually going to be unraveling over the next 12 months to 18 months. We're going to see a huge amount of revelations, is what I'm calling them, or that's the word or the download that I received. So we're going to receive a huge amount of revelations, and that's going to unnerve and unsettle an awful lot of people. So the only way that we can start to make that path easy for ourselves, or easier, is actually to know who we truly are and be on purpose, because being on purpose is living your fully true, authentic self. And when you're doing that, well, then now you're making it a little bit easier for yourself.
Yes. I'm with you 1,000%. I believe the battle's already happening. And there's a lot more to come. And yes, absolutely, having a clear sense of self is absolutely the highest aligned way to continue to navigate these times. Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I could talk to you for days. I'm sure we could find many topics to cover. I've just absolutely loved having you as a guest today, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with everyone. I know that there are so many people that are listening that are going to benefit from what you shared today. So thank you for that. And if someone is feeling compelled to reach out to connect with you, to learn more about you, where is the best place for them to go?
The easiest way is just to go to my website, which is www.paulwilliamdavis.com, because once they go to the website, well, then everything's there. So all the different links to, my YouTube channel, my podcast, I have an online community, and my online community is it's not on social media. It's completely separate, because again, a lot of the members don't like social media, and apart from all the other things that go on from a social media perspective. So my podcast is there, my community is there, all the different resources that people can download and all that kind of thing. The best way is literally just to go to my website. When people want to reach out to me, there's a way they can reach out to me as well through the website itself. So that's paulwilliamdavis.com.
Awesome. And for anyone who has access to the awakenonpurpose.com webpage for the podcast, we'll have all of the links that you provided us there as well, for someone who wants to go there to access you too.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So great to have you. Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can embody new levels of expansion in your purpose and mission as a visionary leader and way shower, visit me at jenniferspore.com.